what you need to know.
From the Goldberg-Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg-Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 6 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trail Blazers fall to the Utah Jazz last night, 122-114 at Moda Center. No, it was not pretty. Speaking of not pretty, that is the Los Angeles Chargers as they go down to the Raiders 63-21. It was 42-0 at halftime. The same Raiders that scored 0 points last week dropped 63 for a franchise record on the Chargers yesterday. Oregon State's 2024 home schedule is now official. Civil War will be played on September 14th, and it highlights 7 home games for the Beavs with the Mountain West scheduling agreement, but not a merger. We're going to talk the new edition of the Civil War, Oregon State's pathway in college football in the third hour with Bill Oram, friend of the program, columnist from the Oregonian. But it is a feel-good Friday. It is a fancy coffee Friday. It is a football Friday, and we start RCM right now at 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for Justin Myers to wake you up here on Rip City Mornings, 620 Rip City Radio.
And a very happy Friday. It is RCM. I am your host, Justin Myers. Super producer Brendan is safely partitioned on the other side of the glass. Thanks for getting up early with us. We're staying up late. However you are rolling on this particular Friday. A lot of stuff to dive into on the big show today. Oregon State's got a schedule. Hey, now we know Labor Day weekend comes around. Beavers are going to kick off the football, and there will be an opponent to be playing against, which is, interestingly enough, wasn't in existence last week. We thought we knew. There was a potential chance that Oregon State could show up. Labor Day weekend, kicked the ball off, and there wasn't going to be an opponent there, but there it is. 12 games on the schedule, including a home game against Purdue, obviously a home game against the Oregon Ducks. Civil War will continue in its September version, which is going to be very weird, but I'm glad it's still continuing. Get Cal on the schedule as well. Got Washington. I mean, there's 3 Pac-12 games right there on the schedule, plus Purdue, and then, of course, you've got the Mountain West scheduling agreement. Washington State also has their schedule moving forward. So we'll dive into that with Bill Oram in the third hour. Also, we'll dive into that coming up later on in the program. It was a challenging night to be a sports fan last night. It was, because I was kind of pumped. I was kind of pumped for last night, even though I knew, like, all right, you got Chargers, you got Raiders. Neither of these teams are doing anything in the postseason. But you know what? As I've talked about multiple times on this show, and you guys know it because we have such a smart audience. We have an incredibly intelligent listening audience, and you guys already know this. Half the stuff that I'm saying, heck, maybe 75% of the stuff I'm saying, you probably just nod along going, yep, we get it, Justin. We already know. But for those that don't, you get some of these late NFL games in the season. These are usually very different than late season NBA games, right? We all know about the 3-2-1 Cancun last 2 weeks of the NBA season when you are completely out of the playoff picture. And it's just like, hey, get us to the end of the season, and we're going to do our exit interviews, and I go right from the exit interview podium right to the airport and right to Mexico or St. Lucia or St. Croix or somewhere warm. Get me out of here. We all know what that last 2 weeks of NBA season are like. It's kind of brutal. I've also been a part of a very bad baseball team doing pre- and post-game shows for the Mariners when they stunk in 2015. Doing post-game shows in September for a bad baseball team. It's pretty, but usually in the NFL, as we've talked about multiple times, it's still football on a Thursday night, right? How bad could it be? It's pizza in the break room. I don't care what it is. It could be the red. Somebody could have went and got 15 Red Barons and thrown them in the microwave. And he's still like, well, I'll give it a shot. It's pizza in the break room. What are you going to do? Like, that's NFL football on a Thursday night, especially in the middle of December. And it's like, the Chargers were like, no. We are not showing up. Our quarterback is done for the year. Our coach is likely getting fired. All of us are probably getting cut if we don't have a a decent contract. And if I do have a decent contract, there is no way I am going to risk an injury for this pathetic team on this pathetic season. And boy, oh boy, did the Chargers just lay a big old egg. And probably got their coach fired last night. If he wasn't already dead coach walking at this particular point, Brandon Staley's kind of done. I mean, kind of 42-0 at halftime of a Thursday night game, and I get it. It's a short week, but you just gave up 63 points to a Raider team that could not get across the 50 against the Vikings last week. On a short week. And we've seen how many times on Thursday Night Football with it being a short week. Usually the offense struggles, right? Isn't it like, and that's not just me, that's players have talked about. When you get on a short week, you have to simplify the playbook a little bit. You don't get as many reps. The options that you would normally have on a full week of preparation, they're not there. And the Raiders were like, don't worry about that. Aiden O'Connell. Guys out there looking like a Kenny Stabler. Timely reference.
The pride of Purdue, Justin.
Pride of Purdue. Meanwhile, boy, it was a feast on old Easton Stick. He was a stick in the mud, is what he was. He could not move, and the Raiders' defense was just like pinning their ear. They knew from like the first series, they were like, "We got this guy." Because while the Chargers looked like they were ready to head to 3-2-1 Cancun and get out of Dodge, and let's just check in our gear. What? We got to play 3 more games? All right, fine. That's what they look. The Raiders, especially on the defense, was like, hey, we may not be going to the postseason. We're not going to the playoffs. We're going to get a new coach who may come in here and cut all of our rear ends. But you know what? I got an incentive in my contract. You look at the defensive line for the Raiders, it was like, hey, guys, if we can all get home and sack Easton Stick about, 8 times this game, we may get some bonuses. And it was ugly. So, there we are, sitting at halftime. It's 42-0. All right, fine. This NFL game is a bummer. Good news, though. Blazers are playing. Hey, DeAndre Ayton's back. Malcolm Brogdon's back. You got to get some guys back. Blazers are at home. They're playing the Jazz. Is Markin in there? No, he's out. Clark's in there? No. He's out too. I believe 8. Now, I could have it wrong, but I believe 8 players for the Utah Jazz last night unavailable. So it's like, here we go. Oops. What the heck was that? I mean, that is throw up your arms like, what a clunker. Just an absolute clunker of a game. And this is what we've talked about multiple times, right? Which is, hey, growing pains can be painful. And last night was some growing pains. And I'm not going to make too much of it. It was a clunker of a game. It stunk. It was nice to see Scoot, especially in that second half when the game was kind of already out of hand, just like, drive to the rim a little bit, get some points, get comfortable running an offense. But Shaden couldn't shoot. And couldn't shoot. Thibault couldn't shoot. They just could not put the ball in the basket at all. DeAndre Ayton looked like, he looked a little rusty. He looked like it's been out about 3 weeks. And I do wonder, because that's going to be a problem with this team. I do think there's talent on this team, and I do think that Chauncey Billups has done a pretty good job of kind of managing through these injuries. But I think we saw last night, one of the problems with having these guys out with injury and nobody has established roles. For the last couple of weeks, Ant came back. Shaden and Ant were in the backcourt. They looked like they were pretty comfortable. And without DeAndre Ayton there, it seemed like they kind of had their own roles. And then all of a sudden, boom, here comes Ayton. Here comes Brogdon. And it's like, offensively, it was just a bad shooting night. But also, and again, I go with my eyes. I don't know with the X's and O's. And maybe there's a smart basketball guy listening who's like, yeah, Justin, you're not anywhere close. But I'm watching it going like, nobody seems to know where anybody else is on the floor at this particular point. But yeah, that was a clunker of a game. And so there we are. Thursday night, had an NFL game, had a Blazer game. I was like, what is it? The Price is Right? Won't, 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 won't. Loser Price is Right music. That's what it felt like watching sports last night. So we may talk about the Blazers, or like, Brendan, this is a game you just kind of flush, right? You're just like, you throw up your hands. And again, we've talked about it. It's still not even Christmas. Make observations. Don't make conclusions. We're not going to one at a time this Blazer team, and it's hard because I am a one-at-a-time guy. It's my biggest flaw with regard to the NBA. I am an emotional night in and night out guy. Like, mountain out of a molehill, sky is falling, and then complete opposite if they play well. There are going to be ebbs and flows to a season, and some nights it's just not your night, right? They say sometimes you're the hammer and sometimes you are the nail, and the Blazers were the nail last night. We can sit here and try to dissect it, or you throw up your hands and go like, what are you going to do? I don't think Shaden's going to go 1 of 12. It may happen again. Like, there's going to be a night where Shaden just doesn't shoot the ball well. There's going to be nights where Anthony Simons doesn't shoot the ball well. But, boy, it just seemed to all kind of come to a head at a perfect storm last night. That was a mess. It was an absolute mess. But we move forward because it is Friday. We made it. We made it here, gang. It's not only a feel-good Friday, and it doesn't matter if the football stunk last night. Even though we had this debate, Brendan, you said you would rather watch a blowout. Okay, neutral fan, because you are not a Charger nor Raider fan, nor am I. And I don't know if you had some fantasy implications last night.
No, I got eliminated.
So fantasy is done.
I'm out. Out the pool.
Out of the contest. What was your team name? Well, did you have a team name?
Yeah, we were Allentown because we had Josh Allen.
Allentown.
But yeah, we were
out of the
at the
pool.
pool. It was a pretty bad first round exit.
The tribe has spoken. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. Whatever else we could throw out there. Sachet away. Shout out RuPaul. All of that being said, as a neutral fan, you said you'd rather watch a blowout, like 42-0 at halftime, than a 7-3. Neither team can really move the ball, but it's still close.
I only know that, Justin, because I watched it. I watched the Vikings and Raiders last week.
So did
and
I.
it was like my eyes were bleeding. So this week,
pretty bad.
I'm about points. I like offense, man. And, like you said, the Raiders just pinned their ears back and said, we know your coach is getting fired and you guys don't have a quarterback and have nothing. We're going to kick your rear end. And kudos to the Raiders, man.
Which is funny because the Chargers should have been like, hey, your quarterback stinks too. Your coach is interim. He's not getting this job. I mean, that's kind of an indictment on old Brandon Staley, right?
Yeah,
that you can't show up to that game in that situation with like, hey, you had not a full week, but you knew Herbert was out. And usually, like, good teams will at least for 1 week rally around the backup. You know what I mean? We saw it with the Vikings with Josh Dobbs, right? For 1 week, they rallied around the backup. We see it with the Bengals with Jake Browning. It's like, hey, we're going to rally around our guy here. And the Chargers were just like, Herbie's out? All right. Wins 4 more games? All right. 42-0, halftime.
Yeah, they pulled a Jets rally around Zach Wilson last night. That's for sure.
Took them some time. The Jets ultimately did rally around old Zach. But, yeah.
There for a while.
What a mess. What a mess. But it's Friday. We still feel good on this program. It's a feel-good Friday. There is still a full slate of NFL games. They're not all going to be clunkers like they were last night. It is still a football Friday. Hey, bowl games are starting this weekend. Do we care about them? Do we care about the teams? Who knows? But are we going to watch them? You're darn right, because it's a football Friday. But most importantly, at the end of every week, we celebrate, right? Because you know what? No matter how stressful your holiday shopping may be, and I did some holiday shopping yesterday. It was stressful. No matter how tough it is to get return emails this time of year, because you all know them. Let's put a pin in it after the holiday. It's like, yeah, I need this right now. Regardless of where you are at, We have made it to the end of the week. And you know what? You've worked your tail off, and you've earned a little reward. And we reward ourselves in the form of a fancy coffee each and every Friday, and we've even got a fun little theme song. Here we go. It is time to open up Fancy Coffee Friday.
You've waited all week. It's time to treat yourself for Fancy Coffee Friday.
That's right. It is Fancy Coffee Friday. I got a big, giant fancy coffee today. And you know what? Whether you want to get in the holiday spirit or whether or not you are a bah humbug kind of guy, either way, you deserve to upgrade your breakfast beverage, whatever way you see fit. And we say on this particular program all the time, there is no order shaming. No, there's a lot of order shaming in the coffee world, but you know what? Not us, not today, not ever. We will not order shame because you deserve to treat yourself to whatever you want. And if you want to get into the holiday spirit and get a little peppermint mocha, you do you. If you want a little caramel or however you like to pronounce it, drizzle on your macchiato, you do that. Or you just want to walk into your local convenience store, grab a big, giant mug of their hodl of coffee and throw in a couple hazelnut creamers in there. If that's your idea of fancy coffee, then you know what? You do you. Because you have worked your tail off all week, and we have the hardest working listening audience in all of radio. Do I know it by statistics? No, I can feel it in my gut. Because we are a vibe show. You can go with your numbers. We're going to go with our vibes. And vibes are high on a Friday. Vibes are so high, I talked all the way through the Fancy Coffee Friday sounder. So, cheers to all of you. Cheers to the hardest working audience in all of radio. Cheers to you, super producer Brendan. Cheers on a Fancy Coffee Friday. Oh, man, that hits good. Feels good. Feels good on a Friday. All right, coming up next. Hey, the Beavers got a schedule. And you know what? One of our favorite things to do? We're going to run through the schedule. Do the Beavers have a quarterback? No, they don't. But regardless, they got a schedule. We're going to talk about the implications of that heading forward next here on 620 Rip City Radio. as I mentioned last segment, boy, that came in a little hot there. I think it's more my headphones than your board, Brendan. Don't worry about that. Here's the deal. People don't understand this little behind-the-scenes thing. We all have our own headphones in this world, but, like, I use the same headphone jack as whomever was in this seat before me, and I don't know if it was Burkhardt or if it was Chad, but every once in a while, that volume button is cranked up, and I'm like, who is the hearing-impaired person who sat in this chair before?
I think we might know the answer to that. You've told me that our good boss and good friend, and this is not a criticism, it's just something I've heard through the grapevine. You said that Chad has said his hearing is cooked.
Well, so Chad
or
and
cooking,
I
should
are
say.
both kind of in the same boat where we have been in radio long enough. We've been in radio so long to where I knew early on, like, cautionary tale, be careful with your ears. Because, like, you're not meant to be in headphones as much as we are. As I was like, and people will crank up the headphones, and there are some people that legitimately cannot hear, and they've got them cranked up to 10, and if you put on their headphone or you plug your headphones into their outlet, so yeah, I don't know where Chad is on his hearing, but we both have talked about, like, you got to be careful, which is why I always kind of keep headphones a little bit low. Also, here's the other thing. My volume just in general is a little high, right? So, either way, I noticed that segment came in a little bit hot. So, regardless, like we talked about last segment, there are bowl games to be played coming up. And believe it or not, Oregon and Oregon State have bowl games. Oregon's pulling out all the stops, by the way. I don't know if you saw this on social media yesterday, Brendan. Bo Nix, whom we love, puts out a video, says, hey, I'm ready to play one more game with my Duck teammates. We all want you there. Get down to the Fiesta Bowl. Never in my time did I think that Oregon would have a tough time selling bowl tickets. I can remember standing in a very cold line to try to get the, like, auxiliary Fiesta Bowl tickets back in 2001. And now you got both. It's a reality of college football now. Plus, it's Liberty, and Liberty, who you would think, right, is never going to get this opportunity ever again, right? With college football going the way it is, Liberty, those players, never going to get a chance to play Oregon. Oregon's going to the Big Ten. All this conference realignment. Good luck, Liberty, getting a neutral site game against a top 10 opponent at any particular time moving forward. Now that there is an expanded playoff and conference realignment, and Liberty's got, like, almost as many opt-outs as Oregon does. It's absurd. Like, what is going on? Here's my theory. Tell me what you think about this theory. Because it is every level, whether it's the transfer portal, whether it is load management in the NBA, but everything kind of starts with the superstars do it. Opting out of a bowl game, I can remember the first guys to do it. It was Leonard Fournette at LSU, and it was Christian McCaffrey at Stanford. And some people had some hot takes, and like, well, what a bad look for college football. Does this guy really want to? It's like, no. These guys are going to go to the NFL in the first round. They're both running backs. The last thing they need is, some Oklahoma State linebacker who's trying to make a name for himself, like, rolling over on their knee, and then all of a sudden now they're a fourth-round pick. So Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey opted out. I believe Christian McCaffrey opted out of the then Brute Cologne Sun Bowl, which
must be tough times for Brute if they can't outbeat Tony the Tiger. Maybe selling a little less really musty men's cologne.
Here's the deal, Brendan.
Brute is not good.
What does your generation feel about Tony the Tiger now? Because he is the he is the title sponsor.
Yeah, I'm
of
pretty
the
sure
Sun
the head
Bowl.
coach gets doused with Frosted Flakes.
What a time!
I think that's like the Mayo Bowl, but Frosted Flakes.
Yeah, I think this whole thing started with the Cheez-It Bowl.
It did.
And then the Idaho Potato Bowl, they had a whole thing of French fries.
Yep.
And then remember the Almond Bowl?
Oh yeah,
The California Almond Bowl.
That. Yeah.
Dumped it, and then all of a sudden it got to the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and poor Shane Beamer,
Mayo's got to be the worst,
Well,
right?
Yeah,
like
because none of the other ones are like viscous,
liquid. Yeah,
they're all like Cheez-Its or
Cheez-Its would be fun.
or Frosted Flakes,
right?
Or put like French fries and all that stuff. And then they'd like, hey, we're gonna do it like, and then they had the only way they got him is like they're like, we'll make a donation to charity, and Shane Beamer's like, all right, great, we won a bowl game, and like, here we go, coach is gonna get doused with the mayo, and you've seen those Gatorade jugs, like a Gatorade jug, which is about I'm gonna say 5 gallons. Or maybe even more, maybe more 10 gallons. It might be 10 gallons, those Gatorade jugs on the sidelines. If you pick one of those up, just full of Gatorade, it's pretty heavy. Now substitute Gatorade with like half mayo, half water, because they had to like water it down. And they had 2 people that, let's just say, I don't know if they had the upper body. They didn't get 2 defensive linemen to dump this Duke's Mayo on Shane Beamer, the poor guy. They got 2 marketing people that I don't know if they had the heft. And not only did he get the mayo, but he got a side of the jug right to the dome. But anyways, Tony the Tiger, when I was growing up, dude, there was nobody cooler, right? There was you had Toucan Sam, you had the Cap'n from Cap'n Crunch, who got kidnapped by the Soggies, and we had to find the Cap'n. That was a very big deal. But Tony Tiger, they were great. Like, we loved. Now, Frosted Flakes as a cereal, good first 3 bites. Then after that, Frosted Flakes are worthless. They are worthless. But Tony the Tiger was pretty cool. Then, of course, everybody realized, should we be eating just massive amounts of sugar in the morning? And it's like, maybe not.
Yes is the answer to that always. What's this fancy coffee full of? For me, anyway.
For
Can't
you.
speak for you, Justin, but for me.
There's a little flavored vanilla syrup in there. Yeah.
Again, 20% coffee.
There's also milk in there. But anyways, going back to the opt-outs. So, like, Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette, we got it. Like, I understand. Why would you want to go and play in the Sun Bowl and I forget, I think it was maybe like the Outback Bowl or something that Leonard Fournette opted out of. But it wasn't the college football playoff because it didn't exist back then. It wasn't the national championship, and it wasn't a BCS game. It was a second-tier bowl. They had nothing to gain by playing in said bowl. So both of those guys said, yeah, we're leaving. We're going to take this entire month where basically our coaches don't want us there anyway. See, this is the other thing about opt-outs back then that nobody wanted to talk about. It was actually kind of good because Stanford had to find a running back the next year, and so did LSU. And so how about this? How about we take that sophomore that's been backing you up the entire time, and he gets to play the entire bowl game and the entire bowl practice, and you're going to leave school and go train for the combine and become a first-rounder. Win-win for everybody. Then there were some hot takes, but can't just be a win-win, right? There's got to be something. And then over the years, just like the 3-hat thing with recruiting. Brendan, I'm old enough to remember when there were like 4 guys that had the audacity to put 3 hats out there. Like, it was like, if you were not the number 1 recruit in the nation and you put out 3 hats, you might lose your offer. Because some coach would be like, well, okay, you're him and Han. We're going to go with this guy. But at some point, the top guys, the top recruits did it, and then the second-tier recruit. And then finally, it got to the point. Remember that guy in Nevada, that kid, poor kid, who, like, he in front of his entire school had a Cal and an Oregon Duck hat, and he's like, I'm going to Cal. And then everyone's like, yeah, Cal's like, we've never heard of this guy. We did not offer him. He got some bad offers, and he got some bad advice because it just trickled down to where it became a status symbol, right? Just like I believe the load management in the NBA, it started with aging superstars. And now it's just like anybody that is like, if you have any kind of clout, it is a status symbol to be like LeBron the other night when they were playing the Spurs. Like, yeah, LeBron's going to sit. LeBron played in the in-season tournament, hopped on a flight, pretty nice flight, but flies private, gets home, watches his kids get. He's like, yeah, I can't play for the Lakers. Too tired. And it started with just aging superstars, and then it became everybody down the line to where it was like, if you are of any kind of status, boy, you better load manage because you are valuable. It became a status symbol. The same as a big, fat, diamond-encrusted chain. If you load manage, that means team cares about you. If you got to play in these games, well, you're just a guy. And it started with Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette, and then it kind of trickled down. I remember Royce Freeman. And I don't blame Royce Freeman for not playing in the Vegas Bowl, but I do remember the visual of Royce Freeman on the sidelines of the Vegas Bowl as Oregon's getting their teeth kicked in by Boise State, giving a pump-up speech, and I'm like, homie, you could have put on some pads and played. You know? I don't blame you for opting out. I don't blame you for sitting out of this bowl game. Your coach just left. You got an interim coach. You go into the NFL in the first round, but, like, don't give a pump-up speech. You could have your pads on and play. And then now it's become with the transfer portal, I understand, but also Brendan, I think opting out of the bowl game is almost like a status symbol. It's become a thing that people are just doing. Like, if you're a sixth round potential draft pick, like, dude, play in a bowl game.
And it just continues to keep happening, Justin. Like, even like, well, let me rephrase. It continues to keep happening live, minute by minute, as in, like, last night, Notre Dame's best running back, dude who was nearly led the NCAA in rushing. I'm out.
Yeah.
So I think now, Justin, it really comes down to if you're not in the playoff, it doesn't matter.
100%. Which,
simply put,
we've kind of all known this all along. But, like, do you see my point, though? Notre Dame's running back, who, I don't know, what's he going to be, like a third-round pick? I don't know what running backs go for anymore.
Well, that's true. He's good, but I don't know what running backs go for now.
He might be a second-rounder, might be a third-round. Either way, he's going to be going to the NFL. He led the nation in rushing. I don't blame him for sitting out playing against Oregon, because the last thing he would want, right, as a potential second-rounder in the NFL is, some overzealous Oregon State linebacker who wants to impress his new coach. Like, please don't cut me like Deion Sanders cut all his players, right? I'm good, like and just taking a shot at your knee. No, but it's the guys like down the line where you're like, all right, you're a backup cornerback and you're opting out. Or, no offense, but if you play for Liberty, what are you opting out of this game for? You're never going to have a chance to play this game ever again. He's like, yeah, I saw there's like 6 opt-outs for Liberty playing against Oregon because it's become a status symbol. Because it's become what the cool kids or the important players do. Well, I can't have them do it. It's like, yep, I'm opting out. It's like, you're up, dude. I don't know if you're getting drafted. I don't know if you should be opting out. I think back to a bowl game you're very familiar with, Brendan, the Insight Bowl. Remember the Insight, not the Insight.com Bowl, but they changed it to the Insight Bowl. And Steven Jackson played in the Insight Bowl. I believe he had like 7 touchdowns. I think it was 5. But it felt like every time he touched the ball, he scored. It was against Pitt. There's no way Steven Jackson ever plays in that game. The Insight Bowl.
No, I agree.
At the wasn't it at the Diamondbacks Stadium?
Correct. Yep. No, that was the let's see.
Was that the Insight.com Bowl? Because I think the Beavs played in both of them.
Yeah, so the last game you're talking about was Steven Jackson. That was the New Mexico Bowl. The Insight Bowl was
Okay.
when they lost to Larry Fitzgerald and Pitt in Dennis Erickson's last game.
Got it.
I have that right. So Insight Bowl was 02. Then
So Steven Jackson was a New Mexico Bowl.
yes, 03.
And he scored like every time he touched the ball.
Yes, then he did not come back for 04.
Was that against Notre Dame?
Let's see. Then they went back to the Insight Bowl in 04 without Steven Jackson. That was against Notre Dame. So they were in the Insight Bowl twice in like what? 3
Well,
years?
one was the Insight.com
Okay,
Bowl.
so there you go.
And then the other was the Insight
Yes.
Bowl.
Yeah, so the one that Steven Jackson did not play in the one against Notre Dame. They lost to Larry Fitzgerald and Pitt. 02. That was a pretty good Pitt team.
Yeah, like they like a. When did they? And they ended up going. I think 2 years later, that team was in the BCS.
Oh yeah, 38-3. They kicked, or 38-13. Excuse me. They,
Larry Fitzgerald was.
They beat Oregon State like a drum that game.
Larry Fitzgerald was a wagon. He
Walt
was so
Harris, Justin.
What's that?
Walt Harris.
Walt Harris.
Pittsburgh's head coach.
There you go.
Which I'm pretty sure that was before he went to Stanford and was like terrible before Jim Harbaugh got there.
Yeah, he was not good.
So go fig.
He was not good. Buddy Tevens, I think, before him, he wasn't good either.
But yeah, crazy.
But I was just thinking about this. Like Bo Nix is doing a PSA essentially, saying like, "Hey, Oregon fans, I'm going to be playing, so you want to get down to Phoenix, please? Buy some tickets." And I think Oregon fans are like, "Yeah, even a flight into Phoenix, that's still pretty expensive. Phoenix is beautiful this time of year. New Year's in Phoenix Metro sounds great, but." Yeah, I ain't spending that kind of money to watch Oregon drub Liberty by about 45. Because Liberty's got opt-outs. Like how in the world does Liberty have opt-outs? You're never going to play this game ever again. All right. Remember how I said we're going to talk about Oregon State's schedule? That was a lie. But I'm going to make up for that lie, and we're going to talk about it next because we got a schedule. There are currently 6 games with dates, 6 more that are scheduled but TBD. And we'll talk about where Oregon State and Washington State and their path forward in college football. That's next when we go on campus 620 Rip City Radio. important, the distinction between the two, because I think scheduling alliance is worth about, $200 million? Somewhere around there. Still potentially up for grabs. But we didn't know who Oregon State or Washington State was going to be playing. We didn't know when they were going to be playing, where they were going to be playing. But now the Beavs have got a schedule. Half the games with dates, other half TBD. But a slate of games, and this is good news for Oregon State and for Washington State moving forward, because when they go to the living rooms of potential recruits, whether they are high school recruits, junior college recruits, or transfer portal recruits, you can now say, hey, yeah, this is where we're playing, who we're playing, because you couldn't do that a week ago. More on this on campus. Here we go. All right, so Idaho State will be opening up the season against the Beavs. That's going to be August the 31st. I believe that's Labor Day weekend. Then Oregon State goes to San Diego State. Civil War game at Reser Stadium on September the 14th. Purdue comes to Reser Stadium. The Beavs can't shake Cal. They're going to play Justin Wilcox at the end of September. And then the other game that actually has a date is the game against Washington State, which is, I believe, is that Thanksgiving weekend? I believe that's Thanksgiving weekend at the end of the season. It is November the 23rd. They'll be playing Washington State in what is ultimately the Pac-12 championship game. And we could joke about it, but it's significant. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Other games. UNLV, San Jose State, and Colorado State will all be coming to Reser Stadium. And then Oregon State will be going to Boise, to Nevada, to Air Force. And that wraps up their 2024 schedule. And there is something interesting, and this is from the official Twitter account of Oregon State football. I know that because it's got the gold check mark, not the blue one you can buy, but the gold one that is anointed by Elon from high above. But if you look at the official release from Oregon State football with the schedule on there, and then at the bottom, there's Oregon State, there's a Beaver logo, there's a Nike swoosh, and right next to it, there's that Pac-12 logo. Because of this NCAA clause, Oregon State and Washington State are still technically in the Pac-12. They still run the Pac-12. They are still bringing in Pac-12 revenue. You want to know how I know that? Because there were some teams that thought maybe they were going to get about $60 million of bowl game revenue coming in. And as it turns out, because of the judge in, is it Colquitt, Washington, I think it was? Wherever it was, right next to Pullman. Corbett? Is it Corbett?
Whitman County.
Whitman County.
Not exactly sure what city it was.
Starts with the C.
There was at least one local radio host who drove all the way up there. So
yeah. But the fact that ruling was made, that $60 million that came in, and everybody who was still in the Pac-12 goes like, all right, so we're gonna get our, and Oregon State and Washington State said, yeah, hold tight, gang. We're going to talk amongst ourselves. Yeah, no, you don't get any of it. Zero. How do you divide 0 among 9? Still 0? Got it. That's what you get. Quick math. Hey, let's go real quick to the Utah econ professor who said we shouldn't take the $30 million from ESPN and instead said we should hold out for $50 million. Hey, professor at Utah, what's 0 divided by 9? You're an econ. You probably figure this one out. Still 0? Got it. That's what you get. That's your share. We're going to keep all of it.
So you say Utah. I heard it was Arizona State. So
I think it was I thought it was Utah, but
maybe both.
Might have been both. But I think it was like the president of Arizona State was the one that was really pushing we can get more. Either way, whoever that econ professor was, 9 divided by 0. Or 0 divided by 9. That's how you do it. Can't do it the other way around. 0 divided by 9. Goose egg, got it. But getting back to the schedule. So obviously, Oregon game's going to be a bit of a bear. At Cal is going to be interesting because I don't know what the status of Cal football is going to be. But if Oregon State can get into the transfer portal, hang out for a bit, and find a quarterback that thought maybe they were going one place, it's like, hey, come on over. You could have a 10-win season here. You could have an 11-win season here. I don't think they're going to beat the Ducks, especially in September, but it's still a rivalry. Crazy things have happened. It's been, when was the last time Oregon went into Reser Stadium and got a win? Pre-COVID, 2018? That's a while ago. So you never know. But, Brendan, you are our Beavers insider. BeaversEdge.com is where you can go for all the latest Oregon State news and notes. The leader in Oregon State content, if I do say so myself. What were your thoughts yesterday when the schedule was... You kind of already knew whom was going to be on there, but now that you kind of see it in there on paper, thoughts?
Yeah, all considering, I wasn't too upset with it. My opinions on not wanting to play the Civil War aside, I think it works out pretty well. Selfishly, I was hoping for a trip to Hawaii, but, we could all keep dreaming. Justin, it's all about me, so I look at road trips, and the road trips are awesome this year.
You going to go to Colorado Springs and watch that Air Force game?
Always wanted to go to Colorado, so that might be a bucket list thing. Wanted that UNLV game to be a road game, but,
No, that's...
Reno could suffice. But, yeah.
Yeah, talk about a real, hey, we're going to play a team in the Mountain West in the state of Nevada at Vegas? Now you're going to go to Reno.
Yeah, it's cheaper. It's cheaper. But no, I think...
You can drive to Reno.
If Oregon State can get a quarterback, Justin, I could see a 9-10 wins out of this.
We hearing any names? Transfer portal quarterbacks? Are there any names floating around?
Yeah, there's been a little bit of hubbub. Like I said, we talked about Ty Thompson earlier this week.
Yeah, Ty Thompson's still available.
He is.
Is he still liking tweets and Instagrams?
Yeah.
Is he still becoming friends? You get Ty Thompson on that and again, I think Ty's going to be a good football player. You get Ty Thompson with Damian Martinez, he tweeted out Beaver emoji and the lock emoji, which tells me he's not going anywhere, right?
That's the new Trent Bray thing. So instead of Jonathan Smith used to always say damn right when there was a commitment, now we don't say that anymore because that belongs to the turncoat.
Good.
So now it's Beaver,
good night.
Beaver and a locked emoji. All we need.
Or no, I think Damian Martinez did an orange heart.
Oh, well, there you go.
And
that
a
works
lock.
too. That works too. But yeah.
But either way, a group of emojis that essentially said, I ain't going anywhere, right?
Like I said, they gave him the whole wad, Justin. I have no sources to confirm that, but I kind of do. He probably got the whole wad to say.
You got to. And he I'll tell you what. If they can beat Oregon, which again, like I said, they've beaten them at Reser the last 2 times. If they can beat Oregon, it's going to be real interesting to see if the Beavs can kind of make a splash in terms of rankings and getting into the college football playoff.
I mean, beating teams...
If you don't beat Oregon, it's going to be a tough sled.
Purdue, Cal, and Washington State, I mean, you'd like to see Purdue be decent this year. That would help that out. You'd like to see Cal take a step forward. You'd like to see Washington State be better. But Washington State, where are they going to be without Cam Ward?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right?
It's such a toss-up. Both Oregon State and Washington State, you think but who knows? Because neither team has a quarterback quite yet. All right, we have got the Big Three. We got Make or Miss. It's also Hot Take Friday. Jam-packed hour number 2 next, 620 Rip City Radio.
to know. From the Goldberg-Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg-Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 7 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Blazers go down last night to the Utah Jazz. 122-114 at Moda Center. The Blazers were led by Scoot Henderson, who dropped in 23 points. But lackluster effort from the rest of the guards on the Blazers led to the 122-114 loss to the Utah Jazz. The Raiders crushed the Chargers 63-21 on Thursday Night Football. It was 42-0 at halftime. And as we discussed last segment, Oregon State has a schedule in 2024. Civil War is going to be played on September 14th at Reser Stadium. 7 home games for the Beavs in 2024. Friend of the program from the Oregonian, Bill Oram joins the show in hour number 3. But the big 3 in hour number 2, it starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's RCM with Justin Myers, right here on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, 20 minutes from now, we have got Make or Miss. 40 minutes from now, it is a Hot Take Friday. We may continue with our holiday hot takes here on the big show, as we are right in the heart of Christmas season. Yeah, we talked about it yesterday. Brendan, you are all done with your holiday shopping. I was done with the bulk of mine. Had to go out in the world yesterday to get some stocking stuffers. And let me tell you, harder than it looks, harder than you think, because it's madhouse out there. It was a random Thursday in the middle of the afternoon. Let me tell you. It was a madhouse out there. Had to I don't say I had to throw any elbows, but I had to make my presence felt a little bit in and around the knickknacks and trying to find the perfect stocking stuffers, but felt like I came out unscathed. But we got some holiday hot takes coming up. I don't know if this is an important story, or if this is kind of a in the minutia, like way inside baseball. But there's a court case that is set to be held coming up in about 2 weeks. And it's nothing to do with the Pac-12, believe it or not, but it actually has a lot to do with not just college football, but college athletics moving forward. Because obviously for 100-plus years, the NCAA operated under the cover of amateurism. Players couldn't get paid, they'd get scholarships. And there were rules and regulations to said scholarships. You get a scholarship, and we're paying for your school. We are paying for your room and board. You got to play by our rules. And our rules say you don't get to make any money. Now, a lot of people have always felt that the NCAA using amateurism was a way of exploiting these athletes for their own gain. And I've always said, no, I think this is more of a competitive balance thing. Because as we are seeing right now in the transfer portal, there are going to be some teams that can afford the best players, and there are going to be some teams that are just not going to be able to play this big money game. And we are in the infancy of the NIL world. In 5 years, if it continues on, are we going to see a separation of the haves and the have-nots? I think it might have been Cam Meller who we were talking to about this. It was John Gold. I get all of our guys mixed up, but they are tremendous. It was John Gold we were talking to, and he was like, it's not going to be the haves and the have-nots. He's like, it's going to be the haves and the have-nones. Because there are going to be certain teams that can afford players, and there are going to be certain teams that can't afford players. And it looked as though the NCAA was going to try to put a stop to this player carousel that we are seeing. Like, hey, you get one free transfer Then you get a second transfer. You got to wait a year. Third transfer is out. Well, the problem is there was a little pandemic. I don't know if you heard about it. It was still a thing. It happened. And a lot of players, basketball and football players, but mostly basketball players, a lot of players were like, wait a minute. I'm playing in a state where they're not letting us play. And our school is not letting us play either. So I'm gonna transfer. Well, boom, there you go. There's one transfer burned. In a time where they were like, yeah, open transfers during COVID. And then they came back and retroactively said, yeah. You got to sit out. Well, I believe it is the Attorney General of the state of West Virginia started this as an 8-state coalition, and they took the NCAA to court. And again, I am not a legal expert. I am married to one. I watch a lot of Law and Order, though. But it is an interesting case where if you are no longer an amateur entity, right? If you are not an academic institution with amateur athletes, that yes, they get compensated by scholarships, but they're not on the payroll, you are kind of exempt from antitrust laws. Well, now that the players are able to make money off of their name, image, likeness is determined by the platform that they are on legally. And again, I may have this completely wrong, but from what I understood yesterday, legally, the NCAA can't, under antitrust laws, can't prevent players from making a profit. And keeping them from transferring is technically a barrier from making money and making profits under the argument, which kind of makes a lot of sense. And so a judge threw out a temporary restraining order. I believe there is, I think his name is Roquan Battle. I think the guy's name is. He's a basketball player at West Virginia. That's going to be like the Ed O'Bannon of the transfer portal, right? Ed O'Bannon was the guy who got everybody paid. I don't know if he ever got paid, but Ed O'Bannon, like every player that is making significant money in college athletics right now should be thanking former UCLA standout superstar from the 1995 championship team, who lost to the Oregon Ducks, by the way. That was awesome. When the Oregon Ducks beat Ed O'Bannon in Matt Court, 95, that was a day. But they went on to win the national championship, became an all-time legendary team. That legendary team got put into a video game. Ed O'Bannon was playing a video game with his nephew going like, wait, why am I in this video game and I'm not getting paid for it? Went all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, everybody that's getting paid from Penix.
Justin, did you know, were you at that game, I'm assuming?
I was not at that game, no. No. That was MacArthur Court, 9,000 people, tough ticket.
Yeah, because
it was a Saturday. I remember I was in Eugene driving around, listening to my man Jerry Allen on the call. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the call.
Two people who were associated with that game from UCLA, Justin, that nobody, like one of those, oh yeah, moments. A unknown third on the bench assistant coach for that UCLA team was one Lorenzo Romar. Doubt anybody knew about that back then. And this 6'6" forward that didn't play very much, name's Bob Myers, went on to be the GM of the Golden State Warriors for a very long time.
And then, by the way, Bob Myers got out of Dodge just in time, by the way. It's like, wait.
Oh, you think? He knew, man.
We're going to have a big old inflated payroll and massive luxury tax coming due, and Draymond's kind of losing his marbles a little bit.
Draymond's getting more and more volatile by the day, yes.
I'm going to go ahead and take this bus ticket out of town. I'm sure he's not on a bus. He's on a very nice flight, but yeah, Bob Myers on that 95 UCLA team.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Herrick. Jim Herrick's your head coach.
You know it.
Yeah.
That'd be a big win for Oregon, that's for sure.
Zach Sellers, game-winning bucket, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Zach Sellers hit the game-winning rebound off of a...
they lost by 10, so that was 82-72. So Oregon maybe had it rolling that game. They were number 2 in the country coming into that game.
It was a different game I was thinking about. Either way. There was a game where they beat where Zach Sellers got the game-winning bucket. Might have been a different game. Anyways. I do remember Oregon beating UCLA, and that was a very big deal. Jerry Green, it was like, hey, we're here. And then Jerry Green took that opportunity. It was like, yeah, I'm going to Tennessee. Thanks. I got a big fat bag from Tennessee. regardless, that's the Ed O'Bannon story.
Are you thinking 96, 97, where it was an 87, 85 Oregon win in OT?
Might have been that.
Okay, maybe.
Might have been that.
Teams were a little less, they weren't quite as good a couple years later, but yeah, I don't know.
Which game are you talking about? Is it 90? Is that 95, 96 or 94, 95?
Let's see. 94, 95.
Okay.
That was the year
and
they
Oregon won by 10?
Yeah, they won the national championship that year.
Yes, I knew that.
And yeah, UCLA's has 2 losses to Cal, Pauley Pavilion, and Oregon in Matthew Knight.
MacArthur Court.
Not a Monday, folks. MacArthur Court.
MacArthur Court.
Thank you. But yes, that was 82-72.
Boy, man, every once in a while, my brain, I think I've still got it. And then
You're like, I can't remember how that
happened.
happened.
It turns out like,
I mean, it was before my time.
They're just
Justin.
smushed together.
So I yield to you. I wasn't. I was about a year away from when I graced the planet. So I defer to you, my good friend.
But so for Ed O'Bannon now, he's the reason why everybody's getting paid. If this whole court case is held up, which, I mean, to my elementary legal brain, which is not even elementary, it's what it would be the kindergarten equivalent, which is, like I said, I watched Law and Order, and my wife's a super smart lawyer, but I'm not. It makes sense, which is, again, this is what I've been warning people all this entire time. Oh, yeah, NIL, pay the kids, pay them. They're market value, pay them. It's like, yeah. I understand that, and it sounds good, but now they become employees, and guess what? Now you're a business. You're not a school. And you've been operating as a school and as an NCAA for 100-plus years. You have not been operated as a business, right? The NFL has a union and a collectively bargained agreement. That's how the NFL can put in a salary cap, and nobody goes, antitrust law. It's like, no. It's been collectively bargained with a union. That's your rules. You agreed, they agreed, boom, go together. Any other place where a company that you could profit more, you can leave your company and go to another company. Like, just imagine, like, he's like, hey, I'm doing radio here. Other radio wants to pay me more. Guess what? I get to leave and I get to go. Because we haven't collectively bargained this. The NFL has collectively bargained their salary cap. That's why players get capped, and they are limited on the. If there was no salary cap, Patrick Mahomes would make like $150 million a year, right? He'd be making. Shohei Ohtani would look like a peasant compared to Patrick Mahomes if there was no salary cap. But the NFL would not be as good. Now in the NCAA, it's antitrust laws. You can't prevent people from making money. You can't hold people back from making a profit. And if it can be proven in court that you making a regulation that has not been collectively bargained by a union, if this ultimately gets upheld, Brendan, there's going to be players with 5 transfers. They're going to go into school freshman year, and every year they're going to transfer portal it and be like, who wants me now? Give me the bag. Is what it sounds like. And again, is this what you wanted, NIL people? Some quarterback coming in going like, all right, freshman year, like Dante Moore goes to UCLA, right? All right, he got a bag to go to UCLA because he flipped from Oregon on signing day, and I don't think that was just because of the sunshine in Westwood. All right?
Hey, it is a pretty big factor, though.
Probably is. But he's from Detroit. But he flipped, and he goes to UCLA. I think he got a bag. Did not play well. Guess what? Transfer portal. Probably going to get another bag. Maybe from Oregon. Who knows? And what if he goes to Oregon? He's like, I don't like that. I'm going to go to bink, 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 bink. Free agency. The NFL can prevent all that because they have a collectively bargained agreement.
You know who really is to be blamed for all this, Justin? And you're going to smile at this. This is a major reach, but to be blamed for all this, it's LeBron. It's all LeBron's fault because
Because he did the decision?
No, because LeBron has had the whole, like up until he got to L.A., I signed 1-year deals. I signed 1-year deals, 1-year deal, reevaluate at the end of the year. They still doing what's best for me kind of a thing. And it's like, is this not like we just saw? Dante Moore, 1-year deal to UCLA.
Yeah.
TJU, 1-year deal to Oregon State. Aiden Childs, 1-year deal to Oregon State.
Because here's what's ultimately
So
going
it's
to
LeBron's fault, in my word. Yeah,
Aiden
I'll just
Childs,
blame
by
him.
the way.
Again, you can
knew
follow
that
a
was
snake to
happening.
grass. I can't guarantee you'll be successful.
Nah, and it's going to be interesting. But here's what's going to happen now into the future. These boosters are going to be like, yeah, you're not taking all of our money. We're going to get a 3-year deal out of you. And if you transfer, you're paying us back.
Or there will be something in Justin, you know this. You're married to a very smart lawyer.
Yes.
Lawyers are smart. They work their way through it. Going back to what you said, some lawyer is going to put in a clause and say, you will have to pay me back all the money if you enter the portal before this date.
With penalties.
Yes, that
With
will
penalties.
be included. And maybe that's something where Alabama's like, yeah, we'll take over your NIL contract. We'll pay off Oregon State for you.
Which is what we already have now with coaches and buyouts.
Pretty much.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
They're going to hey, you're going to have to pay us all this money back. There's going to be a buyout clause. I hope that's what you wanted, NIL people. A mess is what you got. Should we skip the big three or should we do the big three? What do you think?
Probably should roll.
We're going to skip the big three today. Big three might not be around in 2024. We're going to see. We're going to see if the big three is still around in 2024. We'll find out. But coming up next, we do have Make or Miss, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, coming up in an hour from now, we're going to talk to Bill Oram from the Oregonian. I think we'd call him friend of the program. He had a column yesterday about Civil War game. It's continuing on. It's a good thing for the state of Oregon. It's a good thing for both programs. Is it ever going to be the same? No, but you know what? What in this world is? You know what I mean? What in this world's ever going to be the same? Adapt or die. But it is good for the state of Oregon. I think it is, like I said, good for both of these programs. It is good for the fans. If it's in September as opposed to November, non-conference versus conference, and who knows what happens in 5 years, right? We thought Texas and Texas A&M were never going to play again. Remember Texas A&M left for the SEC, and Texas A&M was the rivalry game on par with the Iron Bowl and Ohio State, Michigan, right? Texas A&M was bigger than the Red River rivalry at one particular time. When I was growing up in the 80s, Texas A&M, the Aggies and the Horns, right? The maroon versus the burnt orange, and they would play that Thanksgiving weekend. It was a huge deal. And then Texas A&M went to the SEC. They played for the last time. The bands got together and played Thanks for the Memories, and it was like, all right, well, they're never going to play again. Well, give it about 9 years. Guess what? SEC released their schedule earlier this week. Texas A&M rivalry. Back. They're back, baby. So you never know what's going to happen in this crazy world. I just, kind of went deep into the woods with the whole transfer thing. This college eligibility conference, it is so up in the air. Now that, lawmakers, attorneys general are involved, which is the plural for attorney general. I learned that on the West Wing. Attorneys general are involved, lawyers, politicians. And now that college football and college sports in general, it was kind of always a business, but it was a wolf in sheep's clothing for a long, long time. And I was like, I think they're a business here, but technically they're not. Now we're a business. Now you got it. Players are going to unionize. That's going to happen. There will be a players' union. There probably will be a collective bargaining agreement. TV revenue is going to have a percentage that's going to go to players. That's all going to happen. So who knows what happens in terms of conference realignment and what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years? Are there going to be a Power Four, or is there just going to be two conferences? Does the Big Ten and the SEC take over? But for the time being, Oregon State will continue to play. That's a good thing. We'll talk to Bill Oram about that coming up in less than an hour from now. We do have some holiday hot takes on a Hot Take Friday. The fancy coffee isn't the only thing that is hot. Our takes are hot on a Friday, but it is time for Make or Miss. Here we go.
It bounces off the crossbar, and it's good! Oh, my goodness!
Oh, and a big miss.
It's Make or Miss here on RCM.
Here's the thing. There are some segments on the chopping block for 2024. I feel like there are some segments on this particular program that have gotten a little stale. Two things I will campaign on right now. Two things that are not leaving this show. I guarantee it. Is Fancy Coffee Friday and Make or Miss. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Everything else, chopping block. We don't know. We're gonna have some hard decisions, some hard cuts coming up in 2024, which I'm very excited about. Fancy Coffee Friday is not going anywhere. Make or Miss ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Let's go ahead and open it on up, Justin. Brandon Staley is cooked with a capital C.
You're done like dinner. This is one of those games where I don't know if you could have saved his job, but could have made a case. We've talked about this multiple times. You are different than I, but I'm very uncomfortable, even with the amount of money that these coaches are making. I'm very uncomfortable calling for people's jobs. It's never been a thing that I come across lightly, and even more so since I have been fired a couple of times. It's affecting a lot of other people. When you think about assistant coaches, right? The head coaches make a lot of money, but the assistant coaches are now looking for jobs. Their families are moving around. I guess this is the business you've chosen. So I've never been very comfortable calling for people's jobs. But to comment on job status is part of the gig. And I think he had an opportunity in this game, where his team had an opportunity to at least make this game competitive on a Thursday night and play for their coach because they know what's going on. They know that he's on the chopping block. They know that he is potentially dead coach walking, and you show up and you lay a big old goose egg in the first half, and you walk into that locker room 42-0. Brendan, that was a statement by the team. As much as it was a statement by the Raiders, and good for the Raiders for rallying around their guy was Aiden O'Connell and Antonio Pierce. Because remember the Raiders when they first fired Josh McDaniel, and then they came out afterwards, played for Antonio Pierce, and they were like, and they played the best game of the year, and everybody's like, man, Josh McDaniel must have been hated. And since then, the Raiders have kind of done what bad teams do, which is you have one kind of emotional high, and then back down to earth. Got to make some changes. Wasn't just because Josh McDaniel was terrible. There were some other things going on. They didn't have the personnel. But for them to after that atrocious showing in Minnesota on Sunday, that atrocious showing against the Vikings, for them to come back and drop 63 points on the Chargers, that's a team that's at least playing for their head coach. Chargers, goose egg in the first half. That is a team that is ready for vacation, and they do not care if their coach gets fired along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate.
It's a statement.
It's unfortunate because Justin Herbert, it's been what if, because they've had a quarterback capable of taking them to so much greater pastures than they have been these last couple of years. Injuries have been a part of it, but, I'm sorry, you have a team that has Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, and Keenan Allen. Offensively, you should be putting up 30, 40 a game, so that's...
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, part of that's on Kellen Moore. Offensive coordinator. Brandon Staley is a defensive coordinator by trade. Maybe the defense in LA wouldn't be great. But again, Justin, you can kind of get away with that in today's NFL. Not everybody has an elite defense. You just need to have a dude and playmakers on offense to go put up points.
Yeah.
And they do. And the fact the matter is, knowing what we're seeing from Dak in Dallas now
that Kellen Moore's gone?
Yes.
Yeah, might be something.
Maybe Kellen Moore is a little over his skis at this level of coaching. Only because he has been a coordinator twice, and both times, like last year, the narrative with Dak is, can you win with Dak? Mm-hmm. And who knows? Justin says we'll see what happens against playoffs, but they look pretty good right now.
Right now look real good.
They do.
But those sad Cowboy fans are coming. I feel it.
They won't win a Super Bowl because I think the Niners are really good.
I feel it in my heart. I feel they got a wild card round loss at the Jerry World.
Or better yet, it'd be like at the Saints or at the Buccaneers, whoever wins the NFC South.
I'm not one of the, yeah, exactly. I am not one of the Falcons or something.
That's why I said, yeah, exactly.
I am not a Cowboy hater, right? I understand why there are. But I've never been a Cowboy hater. Never been my favorite team. Yeah. I'm not on the bandwagon, but I'm not a Cowboy hater like a lot of people. But there is nothing funnier than Cowboy fans crying. It's funny as heck. I don't care who you are.
Hey, isn't it worth it just Cowboy fans and then to see what kind of a mood Stephen A. is, being the big Cowboy fan he is, not crying, but, being all depressed Stephen A.
I understand how Oregon State and Washington State fans would get a chuckle out of sad Oregon fans. I get it with our fancy Nike gear, right? Showing up and I get it. Of all the fan bases in all of the sports, Brendan, who is the one fan base that it is objectively the most enjoyable to watch suffer? As in the biggest schadenfreude?
The Cowboys.
The Cowboys are number one.
Probably.
Lakers?
We're going across sports?
Across sports.
Oh, the Yankees.
Seeing Alabama fans cry is kind of fun.
I love when
when they show the Alabama and they got the houndstooth
the houndstooth hat, man.
And they're just when they go into a game, there's no way we can lose this game. It's yep, you're gonna lose.
Man, if you're an Alabama fan, you're probably thinking the world's coming up A's right now, Justin. Going back to what that Jalen Milroe play that he made to beat Auburn, and then sneaking in and. If you're a Bama fan, if I'm a Bama fan, man, I'm proposing to my fiance. It's a good time right now, man. The chance to, they could be back, Justin.
That Jalen Milroe play is going to be in the running if, in fact, say Bama wins it. That.
Not impossible.
That might be one of those butterfly effect things that we talk about for a long time. what could have been. So they don't get in. Who does get in,
Yeah,
right? Is it
4th and
Florida
goal.
State? Does Florida State get in? And if Alabama loses that game, Georgia probably gets in because they're undefeated because they wouldn't even be playing. Or, I don't know. Either way.
Yeah.
And then, if Michigan, because if
You're right,
Michigan
because-
loses to Alabama, does Jim Harbaugh leave?
You're right,
If Jim
because-
Harbaugh all that by a Jalen Milroe, third or fourth
4th and goal.
From the 38
Something
or
like
wherever?
that. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty fascinating when you look at it that way.
God,
Justin,
sports is awesome.
because if they lost to Auburn, there's no way they beat Georgia the next week.
Well, they could beat Georgia, but Georgia probably maybe still gets in.
Right.
They're not getting in at 2 losses. They're SEC champs, but Georgia could still get in. Or if that's the case, then FSU gets in and Michigan plays FSU instead of playing Alabama. And if Michigan wins the national title, Jim Harbaugh's not going anywhere. Oh, boy. How do we start with this? Brandon Cook or Brandon Staley?
Brandon Staley. Yeah. Yep. Then we got the Cowboys and
Kellen Moore and all that, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cowboy fan tears, please tell me they're coming. But yeah, the Northwest Connection with Herbie and Justin Moore from Eugene to Prosser, from the Willamette Valley to the Columbia Valley, where, I don't know if it's a valley, but Columbia Basin, I believe, maybe. Either way, good wine in both regions, Prosser and the Willamette Valley, where Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore are both from. Unfortunately, that fine vino is not producing good offensive plays.
Well, the interesting thing
That's a pretty tough time.
is if Brandon Staley gets canned, which I think he will be, there is not, very rarely is there a new coach, Justin, who comes in and does not and doesn't wipe the staff. So Kellen Moore's probably not going to be around next year should Staley lose his job. So that would be interesting. Kellen Moore, who went from, if you couldn't, let me put it this way, he's got some work to do if he ever wants to be more than a quarterback's coach in the NFL, because your evidence right now is you gave Justin Herbert his worst season ever as a pro, and then you gave Dak, arguably, to close out that time in Dallas, his worst. And every week that Dak looks better, Justin, it gets worse for Kellen Moore.
Yeah, but it's just going to take one loss in the postseason because
You're
Kellen
right.
Kellen Moore had Dak and the Cowboys good in the regular season.
You're right.
Remember? And then, so a case for the prosecution or the defense, whatever you want to put Kellen Moore. As an offensive coordinator in the NFL, you still are under the leadership and the judgment of your head coach. And Mike McCarthy, before him, was kind of a micromanager from what I understand. And then we talked to Dan Pizzuti yesterday, who's like, Mike McCarthy has kind of turned over a new leaf and has kind of stopped being such a micromanaging head coach. And then you go from that to Brandon Staley, who's one of the most reckless decision makers in the last 15 years of the NFL. It's like, hey, it's 4th and 9 on our own 28. I think we should go for it. And Kellen Moore's like, I don't have that play in the playbook, coach. Hey, coach, I don't have a 4th and 8 from our own 25 in the playbook. Run it anyways? All right. Let's see how this goes. So that would be my case for Kellen Moore. It's like, you didn't have that. Nobody has those plays, but we'll see. But getting back to, there was such a blowout yesterday. In college, you see blowouts because there's just a talent gap, right? Portland State was not going to be anywhere close to Oregon when they played each other. It was a talent gap. It's not going to happen. When Hawaii came to Autzen Stadium, it's like, I don't care how well they play. I don't care how pumped up they are. It's like, you don't have the dudes. You don't have the talent. That's what happens in college. When you see these paycheck games, right, except for Auburn, when you see these paycheck games where it's like Middle Tennessee State, it's like, yeah, there's a talent. The NFL, I don't care if your quarterback's hurt. Brendan, that's still an NFL defense that got torn. That is more of a statement than oh boy, they're dealing with injuries. Yeah, guess what? It's December in the NFL. Everybody's dealing with injuries. The talent gap is not that big. It's not 42-0 big. That is, we give up, is what I saw. All right, what's next?
Up next on Make or Miss, bowl games are glorified exhibitions with the opt-outs.
Slowly but surely becoming that. It used to be like now the lower tier bowls were always glorified exhibitions. They always were. Sometimes it was fun for the fans. And I don't want to poo-poo when Oregon State finally got over the hump with Jonathan Smith and got to the LA Bowl, that's significant. I remember when Washington State, when they first hired Mike Leach, remember how bad Washington State was under Bill Doba? Like, they were terrible. And was it, who was the other guy they got from Eastern Washington?
Paul Wolf.
Paul Wolf. Bill Doba to Paul Wolf, and the Cougs were bad. They were bad. And then Mike Leach came in, and they slowly but surely got a little better. And then, boom, out of nowhere, they go to the New Mexico Bowl, I believe, or is it Texas Bowl? One of them. Anyways, it was a 6-6 bowl. Athletic director at the time was Bill Moose, former athletic director at Oregon, and he was like, yeah, I got a list of people who stayed on board. They get the good tickets because it's a reward going to a bowl game. Those are still going to exist, but the fact that Liberty is opting out players in the Fiesta Bowl says that not even the New Year's Six are sacred anymore. You know what I mean? Hey, could you imagine? You're a player at Liberty. You get a chance to take on the number 8 team in the country. Yeah, I'm going to opt out, boss. I'm not going to have... the semester's over, and, yeah, I'm not playing next year. I'm just going to opt out. It's like, yeah, you're play for Liberty. You get to play Oregon. You get to play a top 10 team. Yeah, I'm out. It used to be like, if it was at least a New Year's Six Bowl or like a big-time matchup, but as you saw last year in the Vegas Bowl, like Florida wanted no part of that Vegas Bowl. And it's like, all right. So done 65% of your starting lineup's not playing. All right. So yeah, it's they're going to be gone in 5 years. With college football playoff becoming a 12 team. Here's my prediction. We'll wrap up Make or Miss on this prediction. And write it down in pencil, not in pen, because we want to erase it at some point. I think the college football playoff going to 12 teams, they will expand, maybe not in 5 years, but they will expand to 16 teams. It will be a 16-team playoff. Mark my word. Then the group of 5 or some other entity will create essentially the college football version of the NIT. And maybe they will take over the Meineke Car Care Bowl and the New Mexico Bowl and the Sun Bowl and whatever. But you watch, I think the college football playoff will expand to 16. And then the next thing is going to happen, they'll create an NIT-style playoff for essentially bowl-eligible teams who are not in the college football playoff. And the standalone bowl games, a relic of the past. That's my prediction.
That's probably what's going to happen. I mean, it's disappointing to see that, like, bowl games have they've completely lost their luster.
We're going to get so excited about playoffs and elimination the way we do about March Madness with regard to football. We're going to want more of that, and they're going to create a football NIT. It's going to happen. All right, coming up, we have got a Hot Take Friday, but before we do that, I do want to tell you about the good folks at DeBella. I've been telling you about them for a while now because, well, they've got an unbelievable deal going on right now. If you don't know who DeBella is, they're the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers. And with winter weather being brutal, and it might be even more brutal this year, they can help you save up to 30% on your energy bills. That's right. Take care of your roofing, your windows, your sidings, all that renovation can help you save up to 30% on your energy bill. If your roof is leaking, maybe it's just old, you can get a free quote right now with DeBella. And you might be thinking, you know what? Hey, everybody says they are the best around. Well, don't let DeBella tell you. Don't let me tell you. Let 15,000 people tell you because they have left 15,000 5-star reviews on Google for all the great work that DeBella has done. And like I mentioned, now is the perfect time because they have got a financing opportunity with 0 down, no payments until 2025. That's on approved credit, but it is 0 down, no payments until 2025 on your roofing, siding, window, all those things that can save you on your energy bill. Or if you want to renovate a bathroom, DeBella can help that as well. Visit them online at debella.us for a free, no obligation appointment, and they'll make updating your home so easy. DeBella, they are the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers. All right, it is currently, if my computer screen is correct, 42 degrees outside, which isn't exactly bitter, bone-chilling cold. But you know what? You got to maybe pack a sweater or wear a jacket around the Portland metro area because it's still a little bit chilly this holiday season. But it's going to get a little bit warmer around here because the Yule log is not the only thing that is going to be on fire. No, it is going to be some spicy, hot takes because here at the end of the week and at the end of hour number 2, we save some of our best spicy hot takes for a little segment we call Hot Take Friday. Here we go. All right, holiday version of Hot Take Friday. Brendan, I don't know about your family. A staple in my family each and every Christmas season is the big, giant tin of popcorn. The tin of popcorn with the 3 different kinds of popcorns. Did the Slaughter family have that as well?
Never got the popcorn tin, no.
You never had the popcorn? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
All right, so you've seen the popcorn tin.
Yes, 100%.
Which every year in our house, I don't know if it was like a gift from somebody, but every year and it had the 3 popcorns in there. First off, we can all agree this is not a hot take. The regular salted popcorn, garbage, needs to go. Isn't it amazing how regular popcorn on its own is a fine snack, and I would never turn down a bag of popcorn, especially at a ball game or a movie theater. But you take regular salted popcorn and put it next to the cheesy popcorn or the caramel corn, and all of a sudden it just becomes, you might as well use it as packing peanuts. So we all know that the third place of the 3-tiered popcorn tin around the holiday season, third place, we're all in agreement, is the regular popcorn. Hot take. That cheesy popcorn is the GOAT. It is. The cheesy popcorn is so much better than the caramel corn. Caramel corn, fine second place. And much like when the tray of cookies comes out and the last one is always going to be the oatmeal raisin, the peanut butter is a fine cookie if you can't get yourself a chocolate chip because those are gone first. Same thing with the caramel corn. It's a fine second place. But that 1/3 of the popcorn tin of cheesy popcorn is so good. It makes me wonder, why don't they just put it all cheesy popcorn in the popcorn tin? Why are we sticking with the 3? Nobody wants the original salted popcorn. Like, nobody wants that. Why it's even in the tin is beyond me. Why it's not a 2-tier instead of a 3-tier, why that hasn't been eliminated, I don't know. But in the hierarchy of holiday traditions, which is the 3-pronged popcorn tin, boy, I love that cheesy popcorn. I look forward to it each and every year. You guys really never had the popcorn tin, huh?
Nope.
No.
I do, however, think all popcorn's created equal. And I do think that Justin hating on the just regular old popcorn is...
Whoa. I don't know if you could say what I was doing there, hating. I'm just saying, when compared to, if you are dying of thirst, a lukewarm glass of water is the best thing in the whole world. But if it's up next to a delicious, refreshing Gatorade when you are, what would you take? That's what I'm saying. It's a compare and contrast.
Sure. But yeah.
Have you had the cheesy popcorn?
Oh, yeah. Like, just general cheesy popcorn, but I've never had a tin waiting
You've
for
never
me.
had the tin with the 3 and you can,
Yeah, no, can't say we ever did. But no,
that's so good.
Kettle corn's the best popcorn.
Kettle corn is good.
Yeah, kettle corn's tough to beat.
Because you get the salty and the sweet in the kettle corn.
You get both. Best of both worlds. My hot take coming in, Justin, Christmas would be just fine with about half the Christmas music. And I only say that because it's the 15th, and it's starting to wear me down a little bit.
It's really getting to be much.
It's getting there. I've heard Mariah Carey about 30 times.
I love that song, though.
You know, it's a good song.
I love that song.
But we're getting that area where I'm like, we could play about half the Christmas music and still be fine.
I'm gonna go on top of, and I'm gonna take your hot take, and I'm gonna take it another step further because this is a great topic. The new Christmas songs are so much better than the old Christmas songs. They just are. Very, very much. The tried and true sticks around, right? Coca-Cola was better than New Coke. But now that you've got Mariah Carey, now that you've got Kelly Clarkson, Now that you've got, I think, Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani, Christmas Tree Farm from Taylor Swift. With all the new Christmas, Ariana Grande's got an awesome Christmas song. With all the new Christmas songs, we need to get rid of like some of these old ones. Some of these old relics are terrible, and nobody wants to admit it because we don't want to be mean to Bing Crosby, but I'm sorry, Bing. White Christmas has got to go. It's just got to go. Silent Night, it's got to go. We got new songs. We got Mariah. We got Kelly Clarkson. We got Ariana Grande. We got Taylor Swift. We got Gwen Stefani on board. Like,
Justin, if it makes you feel any better,
we got to get rid of these old relics.
Silent Night was composed by Franz Gruber.
Yeah, get out, Franz.
And,
You've had your time. It's time to go.
In 1818, so have some staying power.
Good night. Get out.
That's 200 years of staying power.
I never liked Silent Night.
I haven't been the biggest fan of it either. It's kind of but at the same token, like you think of Christmas, like that's what I looked at first. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I
White Christmas, gotta go. See ya.
Save me, give me the new stuff. I'm with you.
Get out. We got Kelly Clarkson on. The new is crushing the old. All right, there we go. There's some holiday hot takes. That was good. That's a good hot take. Coming up next, we got Bill Oram coming up in the third hour. We may dive back into the Blazers if we have to. And the RCM mailbag next, 620 Rip City Radio.
Here's what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 8 a.m. on a Friday morning. Justin Myers with you. Blazers go down last night to the Utah Jazz. 122-114 at Moda Center. 23 points, though, for Scoot Henderson, who led all the Blazers in scoring. It's a tough night from everybody else, as the ball just could not go down in the bucket. Raiders, they found the end zone a handful of times, 63-21. That's right. That's the most points scored in franchise history. It was 42-0 at halftime, but the Raiders crushed the Chargers on Thursday Night Football. And Oregon State now has a full schedule of games. 6 games on the calendar, 6 more TBD, but they're on the schedule as Civil War will be played on September the 14th, a return game at Autzen Stadium in 2025. We played on September 20th. Joining us in about 20 minutes, columnist from the Oregonian who wrote about the Oregon State game and the fact that it is sticking around. Bill Oram is going to be joining the show. We've also got an RCM mailbag, and it's a Football Friday. Hour 3 starts right now at 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio.
As I just mentioned in the update, Bill Oram joins us in approximately 20 minutes. Blazers got smoked last night. It's a throw up your hands kind of game. Right, you don't want to get too high on the big wins. You don't want to get too low on the bad losses. And I would imagine this one is just one you kind of flush and move on from. But I will say, at some point in time, right, because the Blazers have managed to escape this one thing. And again, I don't know how important this thing is, because I believe the Blazers are in a soft tank. Any injury with this particular team, woo. Take your time. We're not going out there unless we are 100%, because it is still more beneficial for the Blazers not to make the playoffs than to make the playoffs. With regard to draft picks, all right, this is why Brendan is here for multiple reasons. But this is one of the most valuable things because he's got all the draft picks and all the scenarios. Brendan, if the Golden State Warriors fall apart, the Blazers have their first round pick, right? But it's a top 3 protected.
So we just need the Warriors are not good. Let's pull it up for kicks and giggles, as they like to say.
Yeah, they don't say kicks. It's where I come from.
No,
but we can't say that on the radio.
Yes. You notice how I paused?
Yeah.
Just to, you always have to be sure before you kind of open the mouth. That's something that Justin, I got
By the way,
taught.
I appreciate your discipline with regard to language. A lot of people don't know this. Actually, nobody knows this because you and I are the only ones in that room during the pre-show meeting, and which is very smart. As I learned young in my radio career, every microphone, they're all on. Just like you should always consider every gun loaded, right?
Yeah. No.
Every microphone is hot. You should always, I don't know if I've always applied that. There have been times I've been caught on a hot mic.
But yeah, no, there's no way they're going to be worse than the Wizards, the Pistons, or the Spurs. So there's
Well, but the ping pong balls, though.
It can happen.
It could have, but probably not.
Yeah.
But if they fall below so we are rooting for the Warriors' demise. And it kind of looks like it might be that way. But this is my question for you, because this is where I get real confused and my brain just starts to melt down. We still have the whole thing with Chicago and Larry Nance Jr., right? Chicago still owns the Blazers' first-round pick, which makes it tough to kind of use it as trade capital because Chicago owns it, but it's protected if the Blazers don't make the play. If the Warriors don't make the playoffs, is there a way to use that with Chicago? Is that at all beneficial, or does it not matter? Is that
It's a good question. No, that is a good, because you can do anything.
You really can. You can buy it out.
Yeah,
write a check.
you could, per the NBA rules, if they could agree, and Chicago was willing, Joe Cronin could say, I'll give you cash considerations. That will never happen because it's not of equal value. But yeah, you could trade a pick for a pick. We thought that's what they would have done this year with number 23 that became Chris Murray. They chose not to.
Yeah, that was when we were okay, they're rebuilding.
Yeah, bye, Dame.
It was like, oh, I drafted Scoot. Okay, but they still got that 23 pick. Well, like, maybe. It's like, yeah, no.
But the question is, Justin,
not only did they draft one rookie, they drafted two rookies.
Like,
Dave said no rookies, and they drafted two. I think he's gone.
Do we assume that Portland's not going to make the playoffs? Not even the play-in, because you can make the play-in and be 9-10 and still be in the lottery. So are we confident they won't be a top 8 seed this year?
The Blazers?
Yeah.
Pretty confident.
So then they will,
because here's the thing. What's what I was going to talk about, and then I got distracted because I wanted to know about that pick. At some point, if everybody gets healthy, Chauncey Billups and Joe Cronin's going to have to make a decision of, like, what do we do with Jeremy Grant? What do we do with Malcolm Brogdon? Right? Because theoretically, if you are the Blazers, you want to play Scoot, you want to play Ant, and you want to play Shaden. Right? You want to play those guys. And you probably want to play Kamara, and you probably want to play Chris Murray's been up and down, right, with the G League and up and but Kamara's kind of been playing in Jeremy Grant's spot. At some point, like, we're going to have to make some decisions. And we talked about it throughout the preseason about, all right, what are the roles? Who's going to be in the starting lineup? Who's not going to be in the starting lineup? Regardless of starting lineups, who's going to be getting the proper amount of minutes, right? And then Scoot got hurt, and Ant came back, and you're like, all right. If you look right now into the future, and it's not going to be this way, but as we sit right, I mean, Shaden Sharp as a starting 2 guard. Now, he looked terrible last night. He did not play well. It was a tough night for the kid. But I would bank, like, if you look at Shaden, I think like his last 5 games, he had 4 points last night. The other 5, he's been scoring 25 plus. He just couldn't find the bucket last night. And there's going to be clunkers, and it's going to happen. But Scoot, Ant, Shaden, you've got Kamara in there. Obviously, DeAndre Ayton's the starting center. Brogdon, Thibault. Like, we're going to have to figure out what to do with all these guys. Because that's what it looked like was one of the biggest problem last night was they couldn't score. Flat out, that's it. They could not score. 2 guys in Ant and Shaden, who they have been counting on for 20-some plus points a night, combined for 13. Right? Usually those guys are good for about 40 to 48 points combined. Those 2 guys scored 13 points last night. That was the biggest problem. But also, didn't it, without Jeremy Grant back, Brendan, feel free to throw the challenge flag on me here, but the rotation looked like a big jumbled mess last night. You know, I'm not telling tales outside of school here or like making stuff. It looked like a jumbled mess because other than Jeremy Grant, like everybody came back.
Again, something that we all knew, like, and I know we all, we're talking about, hey, Malcolm Brogdon's good. We don't want to trade him or, whatever it be, like Robert Williams, if he was healthy, being in this mix would add even more of a log jam. And that's one of the benefits is that by having Robert Williams not available this season, you've opened up more playing time for Kamara. But Kamara will probably get less playing time when Jeremy Grant comes back. So all that to say, Justin, I think it just continues to go back to what we've talked about time and time again, is that it's going to be a weird year. It's going to be getting a lot of guys minutes, reps, whatever you want to call it. And if I'm the Blazers, you have to sell off some pieces of the deadline.
Here's where my concern is. And I'm not panic button and this is kind of nitpicky. So can we all just agree that I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky here? But it seemed when Malcolm Brogdon went out, and I love Malcolm Brogdon. I love what he brings to this team. And when he's healthy, he is a great addition. But it seems as though when Malcolm Brogdon was out, Shaden and Ant were kind of a little more assertive. And when Brogdon got back in there, and it's like, all right, he's a vet. Does he get the touches? That's why I felt like it looked like a jumbled mess last night, is because when you had Brogdon out, when you had DeAndre Ayton out, and Shaden was just like, all right, me and you, Ant, let's go get some buckets because nobody else is here can score. Then all of a sudden, Ayton came back, and it was like, all right, do we need to get him the ball? Brogdon's back. Do we need to get him the ball? And there seemed to be kind of an uncertainty. Also, like I said, it was one game. Shaden went 1 of 12, right? He went 1 of 12. He went 0-5 from beyond the arc. Tough night. It's going to happen. So maybe the jumbled mess was because your two guard, who had been scoring about 25 a night for the last 3 weeks, can't get the ball in the hoop. And that clogs up the lane and everything else. So, again, maybe that's the deal. But somebody at some point, we talk about the Oklahoma City blueprint, right? But there was one thing about that Oklahoma City blueprint that was undeniable, is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was the alpha. That's our guy. Who's the alpha? Who's the guy? So it's somebody over the next 4 months, whether it's DeAndre Ayton, whether it's Anthony Simons, whether it's Shaden Sharp, or whether it's Scoot Henderson. I think those are the four that can be. Somebody's got to grab the ball and be like, this is my team now. Ideally, it's Scoot, right? He's number 3 pick overall. Ideally, it's him. But Scoot's 19. He's playing with men right now. He's still a teenager. That's very, very tough. When Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was at Oklahoma City, I think he was 21? Like he'd played 2 years with the Clippers or just one? But he played a year of college and then 1 year with the Clippers and then got over to Oklahoma City, and they weren't winning, but it was clear, that guy's in charge. I don't know who that's going to be for the Blazers. Maybe it's Scoot. He looked good in the second half. Some of that was garbage time, but you know what? With a 19-year-old rookie, Brendan will take garbage time. We'll take it.
100%.
At this point, let's build up some confidence. Now, I don't know if you saw early in the game, a little crossover, drive to the lane, switch hand dunk from Scoot. Give me that all day. There it is. We see it. Now we just need to, kind of build off that. But, man, what a clunker of a game at the rim last night. Ooh. But
Not a great one.
But am I wrong? Somebody's got to take charge, right? At some point, somebody's got to take charge.
I think so. I think you're right.
Even though he was 1 of 12 last night, I think Shaden's the most talented.
Right now.
I think he's the most talented. I think he's got the biggest upside, too.
And they're missing Jeremy Grant because he took so many shots. I'm not saying that negatively. He was the offensive engine of this team.
100%.
So for him to be out, I think everyone's kind of in roles they didn't necessarily expect.
But he's been out for 2 weeks, and they've at least been competing. And
longest concussion ever, by the way.
Like I said, nobody's going out there uncomfortable. Sore right knee? Sit down. Take a break. All right. Bill Oram's going to join us coming up on the other side. Before that, though, I told you about it earlier, but you know what? I'm going to reiterate it because this is a very big deal. DeBella, who is the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers, if maybe around this holiday time you're looking to do some home improvements, maybe you're looking into next year going hey, what are some of the projects we want to get done? Well, get a hold of DeBella because they can help you out with your roofing, your windows, your siding, and some of those improvements can help you save up to 30% on your energy bills. That's right. Taking care of your roofing, your windows, and your siding renovations can save your pockets with regard to energy bill savings. Plus, if your roof is maybe a little bit old, if it's leaking, you can get a free quote right now at DeBella. They can also help with bath projects. It's the perfect time to connect with them because they have got zero down, no payments until 2025. That's on approved credit, but zero down and no payments until 2025. So if you're thinking maybe we'll wait for, no. Do it now because you can get zero down and no payments for more than a year because we're only in 2023 right now. But you got to get them. You got to get a hold of them. Best way to do that, DeBella.us for a free, no obligation appointment, and they will make updating your home super easy. DeBella, they are the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers. Seems like every day on this show, we get into how college football is changing. And case in point, there's a Fiesta Bowl and a Sun Bowl on the horizon, which in any other year, both Oregon State and Oregon fans would be giddy about playing in the Sun Bowl against Notre Dame, or if you're Oregon fans, playing in the Fiesta Bowl and New Year's Six Bowl, which don't happen every single year. But instead, the biggest topic is about 2024 and beyond and what the schedules are going to look like, and the fact that Oregon and Oregon State will continue their rivalry. Oregon State's got a schedule. Now they can go about hitting the transfer portal. Our next guest, columnist for the Oregonian, wrote about the rivalry continuing. It's going to be in short sleeves instead of bundled up, but you know what? We take what we can get. Bill Oram back on the big show. Bill, good morning. How we doing?
I'm great, Justin. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. As you wrote in your column, and I have been talking about on this program, I am a big fan of this rivalry continuing. I think you and I, we've talked about this a ton when we thought it might be going away. We both kind of have a special place in our heart, and I feel like the right thing happened here, whether it was Oregon having to fight off Oregon fans saying that Washington is the only game that matters, or Oregon State having to fight off Oregon State fans saying we never really liked them anyways. But the fact that both of these teams are continuing this rivalry that does have such a place in the history of this great state, I think is such a good thing.
Yeah, I don't get the people who say that they didn't want this game to continue, and mostly it's Oregon State fans, at least the ones I hear from, who say, "Hey, you know, Oregon made their bed, let them sleep in it. We don't need them anymore. We don't want them." And from a practical standpoint, that doesn't make a lot of sense because, of course, Oregon State benefits from having Oregon come to Corvallis every other year. From an emotional standpoint, it probably makes a lot more sense. And then Oregon fans, you know, I had an email this morning from a reader who said, "Hey, this game hasn't been that competitive anyway. Our real rival is Washington, you know, whatever." And I just don't get it, man. Like, I understand that Washington is a rival as well, and I understand the meaning of that game. But you can't tell me that on a Saturday in the fall, you know, the entire state of Oregon paying attention to a game that basically divides the state down the middle isn't one of the most important things we do in this state. And, you know, and I think it's cheesy. I don't mean to like lean too far into this, but it gets said, and I agree with it. You know, in this state, we're not so much Democrats and Republicans. You know, if you want to go the political route or whatever else, but Beavers and Ducks, and I think that's true. And I mean, we're the other things too, right? But everyone tends to lean or have a very strong attachment one way or another in this rivalry game, and I think that celebrating that with the annual football game is a really important tradition.
Yeah, Bill, I don't want to make any assumptions, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I would imagine whoever emailed you about how this rivalry is not competitive and it doesn't matter and it's Washington, they probably hadn't sat in Autzen Stadium pre-expansion. They probably never sat in the wood bleachers at Autzen, only these plastic bleachers. They probably don't know who Ricky Whittle is or Reggie Tong. You know what I mean? That's what's going on with whoever emailed you. So I don't want to make an assumption, but I'm assuming probably somebody that says "Sco Ducks," if you know what I mean.
Well, and I think Justin, people who say the rivalry hasn't been that competitive. I mean, sure. I mean, over the last 12, 13 years, I mean, Oregon has dominated. Oregon made a huge ascent into the upper tier of college football, and Oregon State went through a massive swoon the Gary Anderson years. You go back before that, there was 8 years where the home team won the game every year, and that was an awesome time in the rivalry, where it was back and forth, heavyweight punches. Those games really mattered. Those were good teams, and Oregon State's won 2 of the last 5 of them. So I think that there has been a return to that competitive or level playing field. I think the question of what happens when Oregon goes to the Big Ten is a fair one, absolutely. But I also just think that these things tend to sort of even out a little bit over time. That doesn't mean it's ever going to get back to 50-50 if, Oregon State kind of remains in this Mountain West-ish world. Oregon's going to have more resources. Oregon's going to be able to attract better players. But Oregon's been attracting better players for, more or less, the last quarter century. And Oregon State has still found ways to win the game. So I just think that this is going to continue to be a really important part of our state, of the sports landscape in our state, and really important for athletes in the state of Oregon as well.
Bill Oram of the Oregonian joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. And obviously there is a tradition, there is a history, and there is a cultural part of this football game, Bill. But there's also a financial implication here, right? Because as we have learned over the last 5 years, if we didn't already know, boy, it slapped us right in the face that this whole thing is about money, and that, as the Wu-Tang taught us, cash rules everything around me. So when you look at where Oregon State is, and maybe some Oregon State fans that didn't want this game, the fact is every 2 years for the foreseeable future, you get a sellout. You're going to be able to sell those tickets, probably double what you're going to sell most of your tickets. And you're going to get I'm sure, I don't know if the name comes back, but I'm sure there's going to be a title sponsor somewhere. And there's money to be made for these two teams playing each other financially.
Yeah, no question. I mean, and for Oregon State to be able to, like you said, I mean, tickets are going to cost more. There's going to be a ton. It's a huge economic boost to Corvallis. To have, your rival come to town, but also, I mean, it's a Big Ten opponent, which really helps the strength of schedule every year, especially if Oregon State remains kind of in that group of five. It really, from an Oregon State standpoint, it had to happen. Oregon State needs this game. I think Oregon needs this game for all the reasons that I think make me feel all warm and fuzzy from being an Oregonian and what matters, and what matters beyond the beyond strength of schedule and rankings and all that. But you could make an argument that in the new world of college football, Oregon needs the game less, or Oregon doesn't need the game at all, because Oregon has Washington, and Oregon is all about getting its schedule right so it can make its runs to the playoff and win the Big Ten. So I do actually give quite a bit of credit to Oregon for making this a priority and making it happen. And maybe it was always going to end up back on the schedule eventually, but it took some real work to make it happen this year, to get it back on the schedule for 2024, when obviously there was an opportunity. Oregon already had those dates booked. The Ducks very easily could have said, hey, we'll revisit this when we have dates open on our schedule, which really was, much later in the decade. And I think, I could have, screamed from my pulpit, and you could have as well. But, the Ducks could have said, hey, our hands are tied. And I don't think we would have had a ton of recourse, because they would have been able to point to contracts that were locked in. And instead, they made the necessary adjustments. They got other universities to move their schedules around. They got Texas Tech to go to Washington State instead of Oregon this year, and push that game way down the road. So it took a lot of participation from a lot of parties. But I just thought, I do think that Oregon, which I have been frustrated by and critical of Oregon for kind of this whole thing, right? I don't think it had to happen. I don't think Oregon and Oregon State had to end up in different places in this realignment. And so I pin a lot of that on Oregon. So I do commend them for doing the right thing here and ensuring that at least this one vital piece of the relationship between the schools continues.
We don't know how long the talks, and you mentioned with the amount of moving pieces that we have seen, and I mean, they're doing schedules 8, 9, 12 years in advance in college football. Don't know if we need to do that, and hopefully that'll go away soon, because we learned in 2020 you can schedule a game on a Tuesday. But with the moving pieces, we don't know how long these talks were going on. How much do you think the fact that the Apple Cup continued on, and that was announced obviously a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of weeks before the Oregon State game was announced, how much do you think that had a trickle-down effect?
I don't know if it had as much as it might have seemed publicly, just because these talks were obviously well underway, and I think these efforts were underway. I think from a public pressure standpoint, it certainly tightened the clamps a little bit, because there was a sense of, hey, this is happening, just to the north. Why can't it happen here? One thing the people I talked to at both Oregon and Oregon State kind of really were stressing was it was a lot straighter of a line to get the Apple Cup back together. Washington had dates. Washington had, I'd have to go back and look at what the exact scenarios were, but I think Washington had some dates that were opened up over the next couple of years due to existing Big Ten games. They got moved to conference games. For whatever reason, it was just easier to put to get Washington State on Washington's schedule going forward, whereas the Ducks were totally booked up in ways that Washington wasn't. That said, I do think that it would have been a glaring injustice if the Apple Cup had continued and our game didn't, and that would have been, I think, a real rallying cry for people in the state of Oregon if if Washington State fans, alums, people up there in Washington were getting to celebrate their state in that way, and we weren't here. And I think that would have become pretty acutely painful, within the first year. So, again, glad we avoided it because I think that would have been a real tragedy.
Bill Oram of the Oregonian joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Let's talk about Oregon State because while everybody is kind of going out into these unknown waters, that is college football in 2024 and beyond. For Oregon State and for Washington State, Bill, it seems like it is the ultimate unknown, right? They're in an agreement with the Mountain West, but they're not in the Mountain West. They're kind of a group of 5 team, but not technically a group of 5 team because I don't think they're going to get eligible for that automatic berth that is going to be going to a 12-team playoff. And you mentioned it in your column, talk to me when you get a quarterback. They've got a coach, kind of a half of a coaching staff. They're playing in a bowl game, but there's a lot of opt-outs. When you look at kind of the path forward for Oregon State and kind of this unknown world that is college football moving forward, what is the blueprint, or is there a blueprint that Trent Bray is going to have to figure out in taking Oregon State into these next couple of years?
There is no blueprint because this has never happened before, really, right? Where, a major conference fell apart and 2 charter members, were left begging for scraps. I think for Trent Bray, it is really trying to, continue. I mean, the blueprint that you use is the one that worked for Jonathan Smith in terms of, identity of the program, culture. You keep Trent Bray because you're trying to keep as much of that intact as possible. And obviously you lose a lot to the transfer portal. A lot of players have left. Not surprisingly, by the way, but I think, you start hearing the names. You start thinking, Jack Velling, the Arnold brothers on the defensive side of the ball. Atticus Sappington, Automaticus, I call him, the kicker. When the kicker's in the transfer portal, you got to start looking in the mirror a little bit. I don't know what it looks like going forward. I mean, we started to see some commits coming in through the transfer portal in a positive way for Trent Bray. Some guys coming in who have some experience at there was a Middle Tennessee State player, and there have been some, kind of players coming in looking to take a step up in college football that Oregon State represents. But I mean, a lot of high school players have decommitted, and so I do think that Trent Bray's challenge is convincing the college football world that Oregon State, isn't losing a step. And I mean, it is losing a step. I don't think that you could really argue that it isn't, but that he is a steadying presence and that they're going to be competitive again next year. But again, who's playing quarterback? There's more to it than quarterback. I mean, Damian Martinez is back on the running back, obviously. They're going to have some experience on the offensive line again, which is obviously the bread and butter of this team. But I just wonder if how many people who have real options are really going to say, I'm a Beaver, I'm sticking this out. I mean, Damian Martinez committing to Oregon State and committing to stay at Oregon State is nothing short of remarkable to me, because he's good enough to go play in the SEC. Think about the NIL money that would be available to him. Probably gone to the NFL in another year. He's trying to figure out, hey, where can I have the best, junior year possible to set me up for, the NFL? And, the fact that he is doubling down on Oregon State with all that happening, I mean, kind of blows my mind. And so, that's, I think, a bit of a culture setter for Oregon State and Trent Bray. But the schedule, I thought, it certainly gives them an opportunity. If you put, the Oregon State team of either the last 2 years up against that schedule, you'd be talking, 11-1, I don't know, 12-0, you guys still beat Oregon, but you'd be talking about, a really fine year. And the question is, can they have the kind of team that can take advantage of, what is certainly a little bit of a diluted schedule relative to what they've played in the Pac-12 over their history.
And that's what I'm interested in, Bill, because I think there's a lot of pre-playoff, and when I say playoff, I'm talking 12-team expanded playoff next year. I think there's a lot of pre-playoff mindset. Like some Oregon fans, why would you schedule this game on the road against Oregon State? What if you take a loss? It's it doesn't matter, because if you win the Big Ten, you go to the playoffs, right? It's not going to be this undefeated. And so with that, I wonder, is there room in the future of college football for essentially the football version of Gonzaga, right? Gonzaga plays in the West Coast Conference. We love the West Coast Conference, but it is not the Big 12. But they can schedule tough. They can play, essentially a nationwide schedule. They can recruit at a high level because they know come March they're going to be playing in the tournament, and if they make a run, they got a shot. I wonder, is with the 12-team playoff that, mark my words, going to expand to 16. It's going to happen. There's too much money at stake. If there's is there a place for like a Gonzaga of college football, and could that be Oregon State or Washington State?
Maybe. I think that, when you're talking about, the Georgias and Alabamas of the world, I think ultimately there's probably a ceiling for the Gonzagas of the football playoff, where it's just the realities of recruiting, NIL, probably smack you in the face. But I do. I mean, obviously, I love an expanded playoff for that very reason. And I think there's a lot of disappointment, maybe is the word, about the Fiesta Bowl matchup for the Ducks with Liberty. I mean, you have a great year. You're inches away from the college football playoff, likely, if you're the Ducks, and instead, you're in the Fiesta Bowl against Liberty, which has had a great season, undefeated in Conference USA, but certainly not one of the blue bloods that you would have anticipated the Ducks would end up playing in January. If this was next year, that would be a playoff game. Now, okay, fine, in a 12-team playoff, that wouldn't be the actual matchup, but Liberty would be in the playoff, and it would be more intriguing, right? You'd be more intrigued by the Fiesta Bowl or wherever Liberty was, because you'd be like, could they win a playoff game in advance? And could they disrupt this whole thing? There's more intrigue to a team like Liberty in that format than there is in the bowl format, where it feels like, oh, wow, aren't we happy to be here? So I do think that the playoff is great from that standpoint. I will always argue for an even bigger playoff. The best format in college football is FCS, the Football Championship Subdivision, where the second-seeded Montana Grizzlies are in the semifinals on Saturday against North Dakota State in Missoula, Montana. But, my personal allegiances aside, that system is I think the best. I mean, there's upsets every year. I think they still have managed to crown the right champion. The best team ends up winning it, but it does still require a little bit of a gauntlet. And by the way, I mean, obviously, students are playing football through December and finals, but we've also sort of dismissed this notion of the student athlete anyway. So that's where college football is.
Yeah, what's eligibility going to be in 3 years? Who knows? I don't even have eligibility. Are they going to be under contracts? Who knows? It's going to be nuts.
Are they going to be college students?
Exactly. Are they going to be just hired employees? Are they going to be like university employees that just happen to play football? We don't even know. I mentioned this speaking of Montana, friend of the program, Tyson Alger, a couple of days ago. For the short term, to spark some interest in the September version of this particular game, boy, if Ty Thompson goes to Corvallis, what a shot in the arm of this game if that were to happen, that the backup quarterback for Oregon is then suiting up for the Beavs in the first ever September version of this particular game. Well, it's shot in the arm that could happen, right?
I mean, that's certainly been bandied about, and there's been some speculation about that. And I think, DJ Uiagalelei was the first, 5-star recruit that had ever gone to Oregon State. And now Oregon State has still never gotten a 5-star football recruit out of high school. But Ty Thompson would be kind of following in those footsteps, right? I mean, that is just a caliber of player in terms of, recruiting rating that typically doesn't go to Corvallis. And so, Ty Thompson, I think, would obviously be a huge get for Oregon State. I mean, from a talent level would, be certainly better than where they are right now, starting Ben Goldbrinson going into a second bowl game. No disrespect to Ben Goldbrinson, but I do think from a narrative standpoint, I mean, that would certainly be more compelling than, oh God, why are we doing this in September? What has happened? You'd have that storyline, and I'm excited to see Ty Thompson wherever he is. If it is Oregon State, that's fantastic. But talk about a guy who paid his dues, stuck by the Ducks, and didn't leave when everybody kind of thought he would leave. I think this year would have been, there was no argument for him to stick around, but really was committed to the Ducks program. Kind of waited his turn. Obviously, Duck fans have a lot of affection for him. It'd be fun to see him stick it out in the state.
Bill, you mentioned right at the top of this.
I will say, Justin, let me just say, I think we're going to see way more Oregon State transfers going forward now that is not a conference rivalry anymore. I think you're going to see way more guys going between those two programs. Oregon State's best players, I think Oregon's going to try to get in on, and the guys who maybe have fallen out of favor a little bit at Oregon might head up the road to Corvallis.
The population of Junction City, boy, you might just start going through the roof if you could just get, two guys that were like, hey, let's get a nice rental in Junction City, maybe Monroe, who knows, right? The 99 corridor, no offense to the I-5 corridor, which is a very big deal, but the 99 corridor could become a thing, let me tell you.
I might need to secure the domain rights to the 99 corridor right now before Tyson can get to it.
Exactly right. Bill Oram of the Oregonian joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. One last thing before we let you go, Bill, because you mentioned at the top of the segment, right? And I agree with you. Growing up in this state, you are a Duck or you are a Beaver. Other great rivalries in this state, whether you are Abbeys or whether you are Pietros. I am a solid Abbeys man myself. And you and I, we are ice cream rivals. But in the spirit of this holiday season, put down our ice cream rivalry, and maybe you and the Oram household could enjoy some delicious Umpqua eggnog, and we will have some very fine Tillamook sharp cheddar in the Myers household, and we can, in the spirit of Oregon State coming together, us and our dairy rivalry can come together in unity this holiday season.
I won't eat Umpqua ice cream in the holiday season or in September.
I will not eat Tillamook ice cream any of the other months of the year, but I'm just saying the other fine products, whether it is chocolate milk or sharp cheddar, we can come together.
I think that's great, Justin. I appreciate the solidarity, and if we can all take something from the graciousness of Oregon State, keeping their rivalry alive. I'm glad you and I can keep our dairy products rivalry going as well. I mean, probably the number 2 rivalry in the state really is you and me, and our dairy affiliations.
It is a real thing, and it is strong. Hey, Bill, always appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the program. Have a terrific weekend. If I don't talk to you, have a great holiday. Happy New Year. We look forward to getting you back on the show soon.
You too and the fam, Justin. Thanks.
There we go. Bill Oram of the Oregonian. We are going to wrap up the show with the RCM mailbag next, 620 Rip City Radio. You know what? Let's fire it up, and I'll do a little reverse mailbag because I got a question for Brendan, but it's time to wrap up the show for the day, for the week. Let's hit the mailbag.
It's time for the RCM mailbag. With any question, any topic, Justin can't duck the tough question. What do we have first?
All right, it got me thinking because outside of Oregon State being a rival and the Civil War rivalry, Bill and I, because Bill Oram is from Tillamook, I'm from Douglas County, we are both passionate about the ice creams of our home county, whether it's Tillamook County or whether it is Douglas County, and that being Tillamook versus Umpqua. And if you are from either of those places, you are passionate, right? It's a Tillamook ice cream doesn't go in my freezer. Bill said he's never going to have Umpqua in his freezer, and I get it. Just like Brendan's never going to wear Oregon gear, even when Michigan State plays Oregon at Autzen Stadium. Maybe.
Oh, I have absolutely considered buying like the most expensive duck jersey that I can buy and just go all out.
Phil and I
Again, Justin, my pettiness towards Johnny, it's going to be some years.
Will you buy a ticket to the game, or will you try to get credentialed? Will you buy a ticket?
Well, you have to. If I'm gonna go full pettiness, like you almost gotta go behind the visitors bench, man, and be like, Johnny.
All right, but Civil War is the number one rivalry in this state. I would put the Tillamook versus Umpqua ice cream right there as the number two, but that's because that's where I come from. It's where Bill comes from. It's very important to us. What is some of the other great rivalries here in the great state of Oregon? I mentioned Pietro's versus Abby's.
It's a good one.
I think, is there another pizza that's in the mix? I don't think so, right?
No.
It's only Abby's and Pietro's.
Was Round Table created here?
No, I don't think. I think Round Table's everywhere.
Okay, I just wanted to make
But I do like...
Round Table, California. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
get out of here, Round Table.
Yeah, that was my only one I could think of that's national enough to have many locations.
Up and down you got Hawaiian Time and Local Boys. Now, Local Boys kind of crushes that one. I love Hawaiian Time. I do, but Local Boys is a go.
I ride for Local Boys for sure.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Trying to think what else comes off the
top.
I
guess rivalry, Central Oregon or the coast, right? Do you go to the Bend or do you go to Lincoln City? Like Central Oregon or the coast.
IPA drinkers versus non-IPA drinkers. That's the rivalry.
Or how about craft beer versus Pinot?
Sure.
You got the the wine snobs versus beer snobs.
I would absolutely go something to do with
used to be a beer snob. I have been reformed. I am now a wine snob.
I mean, CJ McCollum did tweet at you.
He did about wine.
It's over
he
there.
became my Twitter best friend.
It's over there.
Drank his rosé. It was crisp and delicious.
It's just that date doesn't move though, Justin. I keep looking at that date and it's like, oh, okay, that date's set in stone, but yet more time keeps on flowing.
I know.
But I would say probably like that, like craft beer versus wine. Probably
we got beer versus wine. We got Central Oregon versus the coast, right? Because you got Bend and Sun River, and then you got.
Bill said it best. I'm not touching it other than repeating what he said. But he said, got a nice political divide in the state. So but Bill said it.
But these are more fun. That's me.
Hey, I'm just saying. You asked what's the rivalry.
I think Abby's and Pietro's.
That's a good one.
Is up there now. I don't know if do the Portland kids understand this. Because the Portland kids were kind of spoiled because they had all like the really nice pizza places.
Sizzle Pie in Portland, man.
Yeah,
that's kind of the thing. If you're like
Sizzle Pie, you got like Hot Lips, you got Ken's Artisan, and all of that. But like if you grew up outside of the Portland metro, and then there's Papa's Pizza in Eugene, which I love. When I go back, we're getting a Papa's Pizza.
Yeah, I know that
throw them in the mix as well.
I'm sure you have some specific things like with Oregon. Specific, like where I know people were passionately one side or the other was when I was at school at Oregon State, American Dream versus Woodstocks.
Woodstock, yeah, I'm
like
Woodstock.
That was right there. I don't like Woodstocks. I'm American Dream guy. So that's one that stands out. But pizza in general is a good one. Politics, beer, all the above. But let's go ahead.
You're with me. You're an Abby's guy, right?
Oh yeah,
and I love Pietro's.
I love both, but I'd pick Abby's.
I've had birthday parties at both.
Yeah, I'd pick Abby's.
But let me tell you, I partied at Abby's. A T-shirt that you got, and you got pizza. You got like pitchers of root beer and balloons, and your birthday party at Abby's. But Pietro's used to. So like the thing that because it was like when I was growing up, Pietro's. It was like the firehouse. Right? And you know, like the big thing that on the movies, and I don't know if it was ever in real life, where it's like, jump and we'll catch you in the thing.
Yep.
Like they had a pizza on one of those.
Oh, that's cool.
Big.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, no, like I said, been to Pietro's and what is that, Lancaster, Salem, many, many, many times.
Yeah.
So good times. All right, Justin, you got about 30 seconds.
Got it.
Have you ever lied and told someone their present was still in the mail when you really hadn't bought it yet?
Yeah. Yep, definitely done that. Not in the mail, but like,
It's on its way.
It's on its way. Yep, done that. Not going to say who, not going to say when, but yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Definitely did that.
I think I've done it too.
It happens, all right? It happens. Sorry about it. All right, that's going to do it. For the big show, a big thanks once again to Bill Oram from the Oregonian. Thanks to super producer Brendan. Thanks to all of you. Have a terrific weekend. We are back at it Monday morning bright and early here on RCM on 620 Rip City Radio.